My name is Dan Caparello, and this is my review of Sega Ages Shinobi. Sega seems to be pouring so much love into its Ages series of retro games. If it wasn't for all the bells and whistles they added to this version of Shinobi, it would have been downright unplayable for me. Not because it's a bad game by any means, but it's just the nature of arcade games from this era to be brutally hard. If you're unfamiliar with Sega Ages, basically Sega gives you the option of playing a slightly modified, usually easier version of a classic game without tampering with the spirit of the game. There's also a rewind function, which I definitely overused to get through some of the more challenging parts of Shinobi. And you can view the game manual from the pause screen. Well, you're supposed to be able to. I could never get it to load for me for some reason. Probably a glitch. As far as the game itself, this is the 1987 arcade version of Shinobi. In its purest form, it's an unforgiving death march that often requires you to know what's coming on the next screen before you get there, which makes the optional rewind function a godsend for newcomers like me, since we're mostly dealing with one-hit kills here. The combat was mostly fun, except the game doesn't let you choose between your sword and your projectile. The one attack button defaults to projectiles and changes to a sword when you're up in an enemy's face, or a kick when you're up in the air. I would have liked to be able to control my attacks more like a beat 'em up. I wanted to have some context for Shinobi, since this will basically be my first time playing it, so I fired up the Genesis collection on my Switch and played around with Shinobi 3 to get a feel for where the series would go. I found that there's not a whole lot of difference between Shinobi and Shinobi 3, aside from the graphics. The Genesis collection also gives you a rewind function and save states, which makes me question the $7.99 price tag of the Sega Ages Shinobi. Why would I pay that when for $20 I can get Shinobi 3 plus a whole library of Sega Genesis games? So I went back and fired up the alternative version of Shinobi called the Ages version. The Ages version gives you a 2-hit kill and more powerful projectiles, and these minor changes made the game significantly more fun. I was able to play through most of the game with very minimal use of the rewind function. In the end, I can only really recommend Sega Ages Shinobi for super fans of the original arcade or console release. The game itself hasn't aged super well, and with Shinobi 3 readily available, the price seems only appropriate for the most hardcore Shinobi or classic arcade fan. I did have a good time, and I'm glad Sega is showing its back catalog some much deserved love, but the game itself is a hard sell for the uninitiated.